Good morning. Today we are doing lesson 2.4, which is multiplying integers. We have the same rules as we do for dividing, which we will get to tomorrow. Note that these rules are different than adding and subtracting. We learned the song, same sign, add and keep, different sign, subtract. Keep the sign with a higher number, then you'll be exact. We learned that for our positive and negative numbers. For multiplying and dividing, I like to think of happy and grumpy people. It says the product, or when multiplying two integers or two numbers with the same sign, their answer is positive. So if we have a positive times a positive, it's going to be a positive, like a happy person and another happy person. They get along, they're both happy together. Or if we have two grumpy people, two negative numbers, they get along because they're both grumpy together. They agree on the same things. So two grumpy people get along, their answer is positive. If we have different signs, the product of two numbers, negative and positive, they don't get along, like grumpy and happy. So they don't get along, they're going to be sad. So your answer would be negative. And same thing if you have a negative first and then a positive. Doesn't matter the order. They will still not get along. And then last it says the product of 0 and any non-zero integer, so any number, is 0. So down here, 7 multiplied by 0, we just learned anything times 0 is 0. This one, negative 1 times 6, a grumpy and a happy, your answer is going to be negative. Hopefully you know that 1 times 6 is 6. And then next, a negative times a negative, or two grumpy people, they get along. You can put a plus if you'd like, but you don't need the plus symbol, because if there's nothing there, we know it's positive. And then 8 times 2 should be 16. Last one here, 4 times negative 10. We know happy and grumpy, they don't get along, so our answer is going to be negative. 4 times 10 should give us 40. Now one thing I didn't explain is that when two numbers are next to each other with parentheses, like 4 times 8, or if they're both in parentheses, 4 times 8, that means that we are multiplying. If you want to put the dot in between there to show that's multiplied, you can. In this class, we're not going to use an X to show multiplication. We will use the dot. So we're going to use our multiplication table to help us in the next few because they might be more challenging. First, we have 4 times 12. Two grumpy people, we know they get along. It's going to be a positive. So I'm going to use my number line to help us find 4 and 12. Here's 4. Here's 12. We're going to follow both of them, oopsies, if I can make a straight line here, until they meet. There we go. Those two meet at 48. So we know 4 times 12 is 48. Next, we have two positive numbers. A positive times a positive is still a positive. 2 times 14. Again, if you want to look at your multiplication table, find 2, find 14, and follow them until they meet. They meet right here at 28. Now we have three numbers next to each other. We're going to work from left to right. I'm going to do these two first. Negative times a positive is going to be a negative. So we have negative 6 times 3, hopefully you know that one, 18. But then we have multiplied by negative 12. We know two negatives, two grumpy people, they get along, so it's going to be a positive. So we need to find 18 and 12. Here's 12, here's 18. Follow them until they meet. Oops, I'm not doing a great job making straight lines here. We should meet right over here at 216. So 2, 1, 6. Here, two negatives, two grumpy people get along. We have a positive. 2 times 7 is 14. Oops, 14, that doesn't look like 14. And then we have to multiply that by negative 8. Happy and grumpy, they don't get along. We're going to have a negative. So we have 14 times 8. Here's 14. Here's 8. So we follow those until they meet. We should get 120. and 12. So there's our answer. Flip over to the back side. We're going to do the same thing now, but we have to represent some numbers with letters. So instead of A, we are going to write 3. Since it's touching the C, we know two letters or two numbers that are touching. That means multiply times C, and C is a -8. Then it says minus, so that's a part of our problem, minus B, and B right here is a -4. So -4. This whole thing is replaced right here. So we do have two negatives next to each other. The opposite of a negative is a positive. So we need to work across from left to right. Later we will learn what's called the order of operations, which tells us that we need to do multiplication and division before we can add and subtract. So our multiplication comes first. Grumpy and Happy, they don't get along. 8 times 3 is 24. But then it says plus 4. Some people make the mistake of adding a positive 24 to a positive 4 and getting 28. That would be wrong because these ones are negative and these are positive. So a negative and a positive, going back to our adding and subtracting rules, different signs subtract. So we really have bigger number minus the smaller number, and we get 20. But there are more negatives, so your answer is a -20. It's like owing someone $24, but then you give them 4, you now only owe them 20. Let's try the next one. A is multiplied by B. A is really 3. Multiplied by B, and B is really a -4. Then it says minus C, and C is a -8. Again, oops, two negatives make a positive when we add and subtract. 3 times 4 is 12. They don't get along, so it's a -12. So we have 12 plus 8. Different signs, negative, positive. Again, different signs, we subtract. Bigger number minus the smaller number. We get 4. And there are more negatives, so there's a -4. Last one like this would be considered a challenge because we haven't learned squared yet, or the power of 2, or an exponent. We're going to learn this on 2.7. So for now, the only part I'm going to tell you is that this means we're going to write whatever A is 2 times. It's multiplied by itself. So A is really 3, so you could write this as 3 squared, plus B, which is a -4, times C, which is -8. But 3 squared is really 3 2 times, so it's really 3 times 3, which is 9. I'm just going to copy the rest of the problem, plus -4 times -8. Order of operations, again, we need to multiply first. These are touching, let's multiply. A negative times a negative makes a positive. 8 times 4 is 32. So we have 9 plus 32. If it's difficult to add 9, add 10, and then subtract 1. So 32 plus 10 is 42, minus 1 is 41. All right, last couple, you do have 1 or 2 like this on your homework. It says Mariah has a balance of $520 in her checking account. So right now that's a positive $520. It's money she has sitting in the bank. She writes 3 checks each for $120. So if she's writing a check, her bank account is going down or subtracting money. She's subtracting 3 checks each for $120. So we're going to multiply that by 120. She also deposits 2 paychecks for $240 each. So if you're depositing money, you're putting money in the bank accounts. The positive, she has 2, each worth $240. What is her balance now? So we're going to simplify, figure out what is this and what is this really. You could do 3 times 120, or this is really 120 3 times. If you add them up or multiply, you will get the same answer, because 120 times 3 is 120 3 times. I'm going to multiply because that's what it says to do. So 0 times 3 is 0, 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 times 1 is 3. So this is really 360, but we're subtracting it. So we have 520 minus 360 plus 2 times 240. So 240 times 2. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 4 is 8. And 2 times 2 is 4. So plus 480. So let's simplify it. We're going to work our way from left to right. 520 minus 360. 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. Can't do 2 minus 6, so I'm going to borrow from the 5. It means we make it a 4 and add 10 to the next one. So we have 12 minus 6, which is 6. And 4 minus 3 is 1. So here we have 160 plus 480. So just add them up. 0 plus 0 is 0. 6 plus 8. 6 plus 6 is 12, so 2 more would be 14. Then 4 plus 1 is 5, plus 1 more is 6. So she should have $640 in her bank account. Last two. Using absolute value, find the product, which means multiply. So these are touching, we're multiplying. Negative times a negative is going to make a positive. 7 times 8, hopefully you know that one is 56. Times the absolute value of 4, anything that goes in or shower comes out clean. So this is one that you might have to write out, 56 times 4, because it doesn't fit on your multiplication table. 6 times 4 is 24, the first number on top. Then 4 times 5 is 20, and then you're going to add the 2. So you have 20 and 2 more is 22. So 224. And the last one, anything that goes in the shower comes out clean. So you have 14 times 3. Again, if you want to write it out, you can. Or this one, you could use your multiplication table to follow and find the answer. 4 times 3 is 12. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 more is 4, 42. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, you can get started on your homework.